Hi, welcome to What Word Today. I'm Sophia, pilot into the universe of Chinese. We are going to continue our exploration in unpacking one Chinese expression a day. So in recent few episodes, we examined a few contemporary concepts translation into Chinese. Individualism was translated as 个人主义, and this ism is always 主义. Today we have 人 again in 人类学, which is Chinese translation of anthropology. And anthropology, same as individual and collectivism, they're all concepts from this interaction of cultures, of the Western explorers. You know, when they first show up in different parts of the land on the planet, on the other side of the planet, they start to realize people, even if we have similar anatomy, are really different, like a society, really different. So anthropology, this as a school of study, started, I guess, from that early era of colloquialism, if we want to view it as colloquialism, but it's the confrontation, not confrontation, this encountering of a different culture, of different people. They have different habits and all that. So that looking at another group of people through the lens of actually your own upbringing, your own culture, right? This interaction became this 人类学. And this is how Chinese translate anthropology. We're talking about people, of course, humans, two legs standing being humans. This is ancient way of writing humans with more nuances in there. And then 类, this is the main thing, because it made anthropology, at least in Chinese concept, it becomes more like a study, because 类actually means classification of things. And when it pairs with 人, and then I translate it as a species, because species is one of the labels, or in English concepts, we are classifying living things. We may classify them into different species. And so I cannot just say 人类 as a human class, right? To apply it to humans than species makes more sense. So this 类 came from three concepts pieced together. The bottom left is the dog symbol, looking side views. So these are the dog ears, the nozzle of the dog, and the front legs, and the back, the rest of the body, kind of a fluid like that. So it's abstracted. It's not complete depiction. Otherwise, it will be four legs, right? And here it's not showing the full complete set of legs over there. But in Chinese, this is dog symbol. Okay, the top, we have this cross, and then we have this diagonal lines on each of the quadrant. So hey, the quadrating thing is the closest we can come across when we say the whole concept is about classification. So this coordinate, we can almost view it as a coordinate. And you have four areas, right? Four quadrants, and each one have a drop of rice. I mean, the whole thing is rice, the concept of rice. Not specifically as rice, I guess the concept of grain. Grain is probably more appropriate, because we often pair this symbol with all kinds of other characters to define what specific type of grain that is. Sometimes it's rice, and because most likely people in China have rice more than probably other types of grain. So therefore, this mi in our concept is narrowed down to rice, but originally it should mean grains, any kind of grain. So when it comes to grains, then this visual depiction of single grains That makes sense, right? And then I have to find out how to explain this cross. I would imagine ancient times when you finish a year of working, growing crops, the crops at the end are going to be classified into different boxes, right? So the top grade grains stay together, priced together, distributed together. Well, that's contemporary commerce, but I guess ancient times, they have similar approaches to, after harvest, you kind of classify your crops into the best, the middle, the worst, something like that. So this cross symbol over here, besides these are individual grains, like this cross exists as a sort of a divider between different grade of grains. So that's my interpretation. So the whole thing means mi means grains or rice more typically. Okay, the right side here means a big-headed human. Okay, the two horizontal lines are the nostrils, and this structure, it looks almost like a flattened ren, right? But that's nose bridge. So over here, two nostrils, and then we kind of turn the nostril, stack up vertically to save horizontal space. And this is zoom up view of the center of your face. And then there is a big peripheral, not peripheral, the perimeters of your head is this one stroke of that. So the whole thing represents your whole head. And this whole head sit on top of the human figure. You can see here, this is the human figure, and this is kind of exaggerated human figure, still is a human figure. And then we have the head of the human. Then the whole thing becomes like big-headed human, right? Big-headed human paired with dog, with rice. We can kind of imagine it to be three different types of things, right? They group together. It means distinction, classification, that way. So that's number one, simply because there are three different things, right? Rice from plant, dog from animal, and humans are our own category, right? Three types of things grouped together. And the second way of, according to scholars, and I think probably is more convincing, is humans with rice or grains together. It means it's hard to distinguish. Why? Because this human, big-headed human next to the grains were probably assigned to the job of trying to tell grain to grain, like how to sort out which ones are the better ones that can sell pricier than the other ones. So that person's job is to examine the grains and to group them into different groups, I guess. So the rice plus the big-headed human figure means somebody is carrying out the function of classification. And now, and it's difficult, right? That requires attention. This makes somebody big-headed, right? And now we have the dog symbol up there. According to scholars, dogs are easiest group type of animals that can be that look similar, can be easily classified. So I guess early on human society, when we look at things before the Western way of taxonomy, right, of classifying things, culturally, Chinese language back then also seek to classify things, right, to distinguish things to a certain degree that's meaningful, useful for their language users. And so this dog symbol was put in there to mean similarities that you could find among group of dogs. They may have a different, different size, different shape, but they're all four legs animals with ears like that. And that's easy to tell. So this hard to classify, or the job of classification, applied on dogs, it means, oh, you actually can group something together to classify them as the same category of as easy as dogs that you can tell. So this classification task plus the easy to classify dog combined together to mean classification successfully done, right? So that becomes the long-winded lay. Okay, so lay, this classification of things, of living things, or I mean plants, dogs, they're all living things, right? And humans, big-headed humans involved that try to make sense of the world, to box things up into different groups or classes. So that's eventually the species. Okay, 学means study. So it's a visual depiction of Chinese way of like a cross-generational passing down knowledge. We have this big arch, that means a space. And there is, well, I put different spin on this symbol before. This cross stacking up two together. Before I think, well, this is network knowledge. This is trying to connect dots, try to make sense, and try to see some patterns among this pile of knowledge. That's my earlier interpretation, because it's related to my daily job as a data analyst. So I'm looking at things, trying to look at patterns. I thought that's what study means, that network of looking thing means. But then according to scholars, this cross actually mimicking the wooden structure of the roofing architecture back then. So I guess if you ever visited Japan or Korea, or if you have some type of East Asian architecture in your town, you look at the roof, there is a special roofing structure over there. So it's almost like a stacking up, right? Stacking up layers of wood so that the roof kind of extended further than what's the space, the walled-in space under the roof. So the roof is a little bit going outward more than the walled-in area. So this was said to mean this stacking up, this crisscross intricate overlayering of the wooden structure to form the intricate roof East Asian architecture presented today. So maybe that's true, because that's the environment, I hope, that was the environment of at least the rich families or communities, like people who hold the same last name and a blood relationship to this, and then there were like a big group of them, and they can all pitch in to build their private school. So back then in China, there's only private school, there's no public school. Okay, education is an endeavor of individual families. The government didn't carry public school system back then. So this schooling of specially architectured roof over this space, that almost like make it a sacred place to learn, because families with this type of roofing structure means is quite an elaborate architecture, quite as you know, the Eastern Asian culture emphasize or value education a lot. So it's families pull in their resources to build almost like a temple of knowledge for their kids to learn. So this is a kid symbol, big-headed with arms holding up. That's pick me up position for kids. That's easy representation of children. And then the two hands holding down from frame down. These are 2 3-finger hands on both sides of the screen, going downward, kind of like that. That can be viewed as the teachers who are guiding children to learn in their temple of knowledge. And that basically the student and the school. All right, so that's study. we have a human species study translated to match up to this anthropology concept. So this is a picture I search up when enter anthropology. So I guess this is native Indian culture, have eagle as their mascot, and have some sort of story or mythology for that particular culture. And we as outsiders of that culture can only imagine like what happened over there. And this is the whole thing about anthropology, is like looking at another culture, of course, through your own lens of your own culture to look at another culture. A lot of times it's misinterpretation, right? That happens a lot. And so this transculture thing is what I guess make anthropology fascinating. And there is a little branch of anthropology called the linguistic anthropology, which is kind of like what I'm doing now, explaining Chinese, how it makes meaning to English audience. And along the way, I have to explain like what Chinese, when we were using that language, was thinking. So like 人类学, we're classifying humans. So for us, in order for us to classify them as a group of people with distinctive features, then we'll have to kind of boil down complicated things so that we can define them to classify them as one particular culture or human society over there. So that's 人类学. Passion to the courtesy of thinking about one word a day with Sophie. See you another day.